And at the time, which is super weird for me now, I remember myself early 90s being an instructor and begging them at San Rafael to sometimes, at least sometimes, reward the dog, being with a piece of treat, being just given okay and rough house with them, any break besides the escape avoidance, because it was 100% straightforward negative reinforcement training from A to Z. And you know that, you know, just a little bit of positive reinforcement would go so long. Now when I talk to some of the people that are still there, and now they are pretty big in the ladder of, you know, supervisors and so on, and they're like, man, Ivan, you were so ahead of your time when you were talking about these things. And it kind of makes me laugh, because I wasn't talking some astrophysics. It was just a very simple, just praise the dog and give him a little something, you know, it's going to make a difference. The dog's going to be happy, and it matters, you know.
Yeah.
But oddly enough, now the pendulum just swung all the way to the other extreme. And I'm talking, I mean, equally stupid.
So today we're talking with Ivan Balabanov. Ivan is a 2-time world champion in IGP, and also I think 15, 16 or 17 times, I lost track, national champion in the same sport. Ivan is so well known in the dog training world that he's one of the very few people, when you just mention the first name in the context of dogs, everybody knows who we're talking about. Ivan has lectured over 900 times all over the world on every continent, has worked in every dog discipline that you can think of. He's best known for dog sport, but there's so much more that Ivan has done that many people are not aware of. And today we're going to talk about the world of service dogs, which Ivan also has worked in. And we're going to explore some of those beginnings and things that happened in the past and have changed over time, how the industry looks like, things about the washout rates, and all the things related to service dogs, basically. So, welcome to the podcast, Ivan. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Ralph, for having me. It's been long overdue, that conversation, as I kept promising for a while. And here we are, finally, very excited to have that conversation. I think it's going to be fun to talk about service dogs because, well, for quite a few reasons, but it just, as you were making the introduction, you know, and like, as you said, that I'm well known around the world, in different camps, right? People think of me very differently, and just because I am very strongly opinionated about the use of aversive and negative reinforcement, and including, of course, electric collars, a lot of people tend to just put me in that bracket of, okay, this type of trainer is like a punishment based or something, one of those silly words. But so most of the time, sadly, I feel that I spend defending, because I think it should be defended, the use of aversive and the electric collar and so on. And very rarely we end up talking about service dogs, for example, or any other training, just because. So anyway, yeah, I'm super excited to jump into conversation like that, because it, for me personally, gives me some fresh air, and again, it may appear to the outside world that all I'm doing is defending shock collars, while in everyday training that's a minuscule part of what we do, and yeah, looking forward to the conversation for sure. So let's dive into it.
Yeah. So as I said in the introduction, I don't think many people know that you even worked with service dogs ever or have any background in it, but you did this for quite a while. So how did you get started with service dogs? At what stage in your career was that? What was the entry point for you and what did you do?
Yeah. So I kind of gonna run the short version and get to the guide dogs. But basically, once I escaped the communism in Eastern Europe, I went to Belgium. I lived there for a few years. And then I had to make a decision where I want to stay. And for whatever reason, I picked the States. I didn't know nobody. It was just like, it just sounded like the place to go. And I was right. It was the place to go, and it still is the place to be, in my opinion, regardless of what everybody thinks. Besides getting all political now, once I came to the States, before I came, I had to decide where I want to go. And as I said, I had no idea. All I knew about the States was New York as a city, Washington, and Washington, D.C. always just confused the hell out of me. Couldn't make sense what's going on. And of course, there was California. And from California, naturally, you have San Francisco, LA, and San Diego. At the time, there were only tourist books. You can't just YouTube some travel guide that can just break it down for you so easy today, which I love watching those videos today. But yeah, you go to the bookstore and you go to the tourist sections and you open these little books and you go by the pictures. Well, at least that's what I did. I didn't really read too much, because if I read that in San Francisco, the temperature of the water, just because of that current that comes in and out from the up north, that it's literally freezing cold all year around, I was not gonna pick in a million years San Francisco. But other than that, just the name had a ring to me. And then the whole multicultural aspect of it I was very drawn to that. And then it was about, let's find a job. And as I said, even though I was political refugee, and I could have food stamps and welfare and all this, I never took any of those. I'm like, I'm a big boy. I can take care of myself, and you don't need to worry about that. So with a big newspaper, my past life, I was an electrician. So I have no idea what the newspaper was, but one big ass newspaper at the end with the, looking for job and looking for places to rent. And so no car, nothing, just walking up the hills of San Francisco looking for job. And it was not easy, because it was that was like 91 or somewhere in there. It was somewhat in a recession, I guess, the economy, but I was oblivious. I'm like, yeah, I'll make it happen. Until, as I'm doing this, one day, I see a white van with a painting of a person with a guide dog. And I've only at that time just knew about them just because of general education on dogs, but I really didn't know much in depth about what they do. But I was like, okay, let's see where that school is. So I kind of search, I ask, and it's like across. So I live in San Francisco. The school is in San Rafael, which is about, without traffic, going through Golden Gate Bridge, let's say 35 minutes. Traffic hour in the 90s, it was still very bad. It was, hour and a half at least. So I find the guide dog school. I'm like, okay, let's see if I can get a job. And I go there, I ask who do I check in with trying to get a job, apply for a job. And of course, every person in there that I asked, they're like, well, we don't have any openings. There is a whole process you need to do. I'm like, can I talk to somebody? So I was just a little more persistent probably than most people would be. And I end up that same day talking to the training director of the school. And of course, he's like, well, we don't have a job. We there is like a big list of applications that we have. And you don't just become instructor. You have to go through a 3-year of apprenticeship and then pass a test and so on and so on. I'm like, I'm willing to do whatever it is at this place, including kennel work, start with being a kennel assistant, like whatever. I mean, it's still better than getting a job in McDonald's, which I would have. Like, I had no problem working whatever it needed to do as long as I'm on my own and not relying on food stamps and welfare kind of thing. It didn't work out. The guy was like, yeah, you can fill out application, but most likely not going to happen. I filled the application. 2 days later, I get a phone call. It's like, you still interested? I'm like, of course I am. It's like, okay, when can you come? I'm like, when do you want me there? I have nothing to do. It's not like I need to quit another job or give my 2 weeks notice somewhere. I'm ready to go. All right, come tomorrow. So that's how I got hired. And it worked out so well for me in so many ways. Like I mean, from going through TWC course, how many times I bring that experience of guide dogs into the classes that whenever we talk about dog training, I cannot just not be explicit enough how much that brought so much value, that experience to what I know today. And yeah, I started with a little bit of a kennel assistant, then went quickly to apprenticeship, blindfolded for 10 days and so on. And not easy. I have so many cool stories with it. One of them, they basically really like what I do with training. And they wanted to keep me. My English wasn't, I like, once I was in Belgium and I knew that I will move to the States, I started to take some English classes, but I was nowhere near being able to instruct a blind person what to do with a dog as they're going on the street and they have to navigate around obstacles. And that was very, very stressful. I remember times where I just like, no words. I don't know even the words, what to say. So finally, I have to put my hands on the person to stop them from just smashing a light bulb just because my instructions not coming timely. And putting the hands unannounced on a blind person is one of the probably the worst things you can do. Like I'm sure you know from being in the service dog industry. So that was really the most stressful thing at the time was, can I learn English sufficient enough on timely fashion to where they still will be patient enough with me to allow me so I can really do the part of the job that I couldn't do well. And yeah, they did. And so it was an extremely cool period of my career. On top of just the dog training experience, of course, you have to think of being a foreigner, not having anybody, and because of my ego or just personality, not wanting to rely on social help, those institutions. And guide dogs was very, very, very good to me because, again, I was able to very quickly have a credit history, open up credit cards, have health insurance, all the things that you realize that, hey, you're not in Europe anymore. You have to take care of those things it's on your own, So these were interesting lessons. That was guide dogs. Eventually I stopped because, because I started to, a few reasons, but the main reason was it's like it really was like a teacher's type of job, to where you have the dogs, you train the dogs, you get your students, you train the students, then you go on some follow-up around the country to see how they are maintaining training, do some interviews for the future students, and then you have to, like it or not, you have to take a certain amount of days, and that's your vacation. And then it's cycle after cycle. So most of the time, very rarely, in fact, most of the time, all those vacations that I got, they never hit it with me trying to go to some competition and enjoy something that I like to do, and that was competing with the dogs. Like that would be regional championship, national championship. Well, guess what? Ivan is at class, can do it. There's absolutely, you cannot do it. So that became quite frustrating, and eventually led to getting a job at the San Francisco SPCA. San Francisco SPCA, I mean, I was like an animal behaviorist. I was responsible for intake of dogs, evaluating dogs that are in animal care, and kind of making the decision, can we rehab that dog, or is that dog without rehabilitation good enough to be adopted? And if it is, then we would take him in. But then I ended up doing even more service type of work, and that was the hearing dogs, because San Francisco SPCA had a hearing dog program they would pick up little dogs from the shelter and go through that training. So naturally, I have interest for all dog training, and I learned a lot about hearing dogs, and I ended up also, I don't know why, but I have that intuition and talent where I can look at any training and give some valuable input to improve things. So I did a lot for them as well. But that's pretty much, again, when I remember in Santa Rosa, what was the school? It just started at that time. And we were like the instructors at guide dogs. They were like, man, that's kind of a job that's not really needed. It's not going to go anywhere. I can't think, you know the name of the place in Santa Rosa with the service dog. But anyway, they ended up, in my opinion, I think they were the first ones that really started to pay attention and introduce dogs that can help people on wheelchairs and various other disabilities. And and again, just like how we were talking about the cameras and the, you know, the role of film versus the digital. At the time, I really remember how the guide dog instructors, they thought of that's like the most needed and the most realistic, most advanced type of training, and we're looking down on any other service type of dogs, and that ended up quickly not being the truth. We very quickly realized that there is a serious need, and yeah, and there we are today here. But that's kind of really, and of course, every once in a while, I have this. I seriously want to give it a try one time with what I know today, how I would train a guide dog with the knowledge of my, like it's something that it's constantly lingering somewhere in my head, and who knows, not that I ever have time, but who knows.
Yeah. So if you think of service dog training compared to other dog training, pet dogs or sport dogs or protection dogs, what do you think the differences are? You experience a lot of differences in the people, in the dogs, in the training approaches. How does this differ?
Yeah. So I think, yeah, I mean, there is some big ones, right? And probably not in any particular order. One of them is a genuine love to interact with humans in a good way. Be keen in recognizing their emotions, which comes from the wanting to interact, I think. But there is, I'm convinced that there is some very big innate component of being breeding selection or just selecting a dog from the shelter. But I think that's a very big one, to where you have a dog that it's very keen on interacting. And I know probably some people that listen might not necessarily like how I would say, but I believe that dogs, there's certain dogs that they like to please you, and they appreciate this is going probably too off the rails here, but I've seen it firsthand with service dogs. A lot of them know, they're aware that they're important in the life of that person, that they're not, like that there is that thing. And I think that's very genuine, and some dogs come with it. Some dogs you can build into it, but the ones that have it like naturally, it's amazing to watch. So that's one. Soundness is always very important. Meaning genetically sound dog that when a plastic bag flies in front of their face, they don't panic. So, I think different service dog places emphasize more and pay attention more to that than others. But I think that's definitely in top 3. Again, not in any order. Sound genetic predisposition. And then, yeah, for service dog, you really need that kind of, you don't want to confuse it with a lazy dog, but more of a moderate drive dog. to where it's not always in your face of well, we haven't done anything for 2 hours and I'm losing my mind, let's go type of dog. That's the dog that, so energy level, I think it's also of essence, because we do need drive. That drive equals motivation, right? But I remember when we were back in the days with the guide dogs, you know, some of them, the most amazing guide dogs were German Shepherds. But when a German Shepherd understands their task, they want to go. And when you have them, you know, for anybody that's not familiar with service types of dogs, you never, I wouldn't say never, but you very rarely have a otherwise very healthy, capable person that can really go. Typically, blindness is always a byproduct of a whole package of health problems, and mobility is not your best card. So, like somebody like me, that would be the type of dog to have. Somebody, because again, when you have a guide dog, one of the most important thing is that you feel that that dog is taking you somewhere. The moment that dog is starting, you're not feeling that tension on the harness, you have no idea what's up. You're thinking, okay, well, are we approaching a curb? Is there a car? Is it a tree? Or is it just a street and you are kind of being distracted? So that steady pull is so comforting, but when it's too fast-paced, it becomes a problem. So anyway, energy level is another big one. And, you know, I think always has to be taken under consideration. Like it would be a mistake, even when somebody with disability is active, it's still, there is so many variables to where even, okay, well, I can throw a ball and play, but then it's like, well, where do you live? You're living in the middle of the city, and where is the closest place where you can open up and play, and then a whole, yeah. So I would say, again, not in any particular order, but my top three will be energy level, genetical soundness, and that genuine love being into a person's, like, I like to do things with you, and feeling that they are actually contributing and doing something for you, which I think is very genuine. And some dogs really have it and some dogs don't. And I think to go off a little more on that, these are the type of dogs that can do well with seizure alerts, because they're keen and they pay attention. Like, you can have a dog that's very good at understanding the behaviors of what their tasks are because they like to be trained, but they're not constantly like paying attention on you, right? At least that's what I think. That's more in your ballpark. So I'm kind of curious where you stand with this.
Yeah, I have some strong opinions on that, just like you have strong opinions on things. I have some strong opinions around this too. So I was introduced to service dog work through my girlfriend, who's been doing this for 11 years, I think now. And we've been doing it together since 2020, really, so 4 years. And it's been the biggest, we've merged our businesses and it's become the biggest part of our shared business. And what I've learned and noticed over the time we've been doing is we've been doing very well with higher drive dogs. And higher, not highest. I agree, the highest, if the dog just can't sit still after 2 hours, he needs to go run for an hour, that's not gonna work. But high drive has been a great washout preventer. So and this is actually another question I had. It goes into breeding probably and your views on the washout rate. But what I've seen is if the dog has a high enough drive, it's a more sound dog, it's a more resilient dog, they don't get spooked as much, they're far less likely to wash out. So this washout rate of 50% in this industry, 50, that's crazy. If you buy a car and 50% of the time it dies the moment you drive it off the lot and the dealer goes, buy another one, not my problem. We would not accept that, right? And with a dog, everybody goes, well, it's a living being, we can't control that, it's a risk you take. And then most people just, okay, I guess I have to take that risk. But I don't think we have to take that risk. But it comes also down to training skills. So if you have a higher drive dog who is more demanding, who will be crazy for the first year of his life, you need to know how to train a dog like that. And you need to know how to channel that drive into a task and into something productive and not let it run wild and get out of control. So the dog just finds its own outlets. We have to show him what the outlets are. And they become super committed to the actual service task we teach them. And we have a far lesser washout risk. But if you have these really mellow, easygoing little pups that are very easy to train, very easy to transition into a person's life, they're not as resilient and they're far more likely to wash out, especially with psychiatric disabilities. And you have depression, anxiety, PTSD, stuff like that, because that's really taxing.
It's kind of hard to keep their motivation, or what? Probably.
Well, they just, like, I'm not sure if you've ever personally taken care of someone with a disability, and it's very taxing. I mean, it's mentally taxing for people. It's anyone who has a partner who's disabled in some way. It's taxing. No. It's just life. It's normal. It's not like a surprise either, right? It takes a toll. There's always things that you need to consider that you otherwise don't have to consider if you're both completely able-bodied and everybody's healthy and you don't have to worry about things. So it takes a toll on a person and it takes a toll on a dog. So we need the tougher dog to be able to handle that. So
absolutely true.
Our washout rate is 10%. It's not 50, not 50. We haven't had a dog wash out in 8 years. She hasn't had a dog wash out in 8 years. We haven't had a single dog wash out the entire time we've been doing it together. So it's been 8 years now for her. And
above exceptional 10%. That's
It
that's
is
really like wow.
It's the types of dogs we pick. So we pick higher drive dogs, often hunting dogs, so like labs, goldens. We do like shepherds too. We have 2 poodles here right now. We have 3 labs here right now and 2 shepherds. One just came in, German shepherd puppy. And they're all higher drive animals. They're not like completely nuts. I mean, like, I've seen your Malinois litters. I've seen videos of some of those, and some are probably beyond what would be a good selection for a service dog, because you breed them for other purposes. Makes perfect sense.
Correct.
But the hunting dogs that we pick, especially if it's kind of like a hunting dog breeder, and it's kind of the runt of his litter, the washout basically from a hunting perspective. He's not the greatest hunter, but he still has the drive and still has the resilience. Sure. Those have been great for us.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very interesting. I mean, as you say, the Malinois, you know, like we would have, I mean, when we're talking high drives, there is, depending what breed you're talking and what kind of selection you're talking. I guess I should be more specific somehow, and I'm trying to think of what I mean by that. Like probably I'm confusing or mixing high drive with a little bit more of a neurotic kind of type of personality, to where the dog is just, you have to tell him to lay down in the house because they just cannot. They just are making circles around the coffee table, and you're so used to it that you don't even understand what's going on. You're just getting kind of frustrated, and next thing you know, you see that dog just silently making rounds around the table. Then you tell him to lay down, then he lays down for half a minute, and then you have to remind them because they just have to get up and keep doing something like that. So probably the high drive is not the best word to use. that there is something to this kind of restless type of personality that doesn't do well at just, and not necessarily for service dog, but just for any person, including myself. Like people sometimes think, oh, you're breeding Malinois, so therefore they're all these crazy monkeys jumping around the house. No, I'll get suicidal if that's the case. That's not a good dog for anything. You cannot do nothing with dog like that. You actually, for any purpose, you like a dog that when we're not doing nothing, like right now I'm talking to you and they're all, I don't know, they're all laying down in a bunch of places, like you cannot even hear them, right? I don't need to snap my finger and say do that or don't do that. So probably you're correct. High drive is not the right way to describe the dogs that I don't like for service work. Is that kind of short fuse, impatient, restless, and I don't think that necessarily is a high drive, a healthy high drive, right?
Yeah, it's hyper. Maybe is a good word to describe. The dog's too hyperactive, can't think, can't pause to think, can't contemplate, can't make decisions, just reacts all the time. That's probably a better descriptor. But so that on the washout rate. So what's your view on the washout rate? I mean, I just told you my view, but what's your view on why the washout rate is so high in this industry? Because that's pretty crazy to me.
It is insane. It is absolutely insane. I will go back in time just because I'm that old. I remember me reading books. It's somewhere in here behind me. It was Clarence Pfaffenberg. He was kind of one of the first, if not the first one, to really the puppy testing. And he did it for the school, the guide dog school in San Rafael. And then he wrote a book and he kind of really put it, like when you think of all the classic puppy tests, like, okay, someday we're going to drop the key on the ground, we're going to roll a piece of newspaper, we're going to open the umbrella. This is all Pfaffenberg. And he claimed in the book, just like everybody likes to make claims like that before they implemented the selection, the selective breeding and the puppy testing, the success rate was 50-50. And then in few years, because of the selective breeding and the puppy testing, it ended up being like 75 or 80%, which is still extremely good. Well, so when I went to guide dogs, that was 30 years after his work. And it was still 50-50. I mean, literally 50-50. And you have quite a few different reasons why you wash a dog, I guess. Sometimes, again, it's temperament. Sometimes it's soundness. Sometimes it's health. Sometimes it's just the dog's IQ, because we have to, when you train, we have to agree on certain things. Like some dogs are very difficult to train, and it's not because they're not trying. It's just for some reason they're not making the connection. They're not retaining the knowledge. It's like so what we used to do is dogs, we will still give them a chance, and as they go through one class, then we will pull them back and have them restart over, just like with any school program. But there were still dogs that just couldn't fit maybe the training style. Maybe I think training style is one of the big things now that I just mentioned, that And that is a universal problem in every dog training. You take hunting dogs, you can take any competitions, IGP, whatever dogs, guide dogs. And if you are stuck in training this way, and you have no courage or knowledge to adapt to what that dog needs, that becomes a factor of rejecting the dog at some point. And so I firmly believe that adaptive training has something to do with the percentage of failure. And the bigger the organization is, the more structured the training is, and you're not really allowed to just like I remember, as I told you earlier in the conversation, I'm like, man, if I just give one cookie to that dog right now, it's gonna make the world of difference, but I'm not allowed. So too bad, you know. And I think the same goes for police departments. You know, there is always the pros and cons. Like, okay, well, we all move at the same pace, we all do the same things, but at the same time, we neglect the individual one-on-one training, which is where everything is about, and that's why, you know. So yeah, the ability to adapt to what you can do and what you need to do in training at a certain stage. Some organization will, and some will not allow you to. And I understand it both ways, being in that industry. And then it's also a matter of time, I think. Sometimes, just like with people, and again, goes right back into the bigger organization, because they, like it or not, there is a little bit more of a, you know, like a conveyor, like there is a routine, there's a very specific time what you need to do and when. And a dog can come, like again, going back to what my background is, guide dogs, they would come around 14 months, and we will train them for about 3 months. I believe it's been so long that I cannot remember exactly. And then we have about 3 weeks with the student, and then off they go, if everything goes right. But just like taking a dog at 14 months, there is a maturity level as well that plays a role. And some dogs are ready and some dogs are not. Yeah. And when you try to put this kind of, it is an intense program for 3 months to learn how to navigate traffic anywhere. That's it's quite intense and stressful. And combine that with a trainer that is not as good in problem solving and recognizing, because you have, you know, a beginner trainer, you have a seasoned trainer, they all, you know, eventually by the time the newbie kind of realize, hey, I have a problem, can I get help? The problem already got too deep to where now we are in a pickle. So I would speculate that your success, and hats off, I mean, it's absolutely still, regardless of what, it's absolutely amazing. But my speculation is that you have the ability to do what has to be done with your dogs. And a lot of organizations don't have that luxury. Maybe that's, at least on top of, as we're talking, that's kind of what I come up with. I don't know.
Well, it's definitely, we raise the dogs. So there's no puppy raisers in what we do. We're a 2-people team. We have assistants, but we do all the work. The dogs are here. We raise them. We train them from puppyhood. They're with us the entire time. And their training is just play-based and from the start, from week, they get here when they're 8 weeks old if they're puppies, and the next day we'll start playing with them. Like in the weekend, oh, hey, this is fun. Let's keep going. So by the time they get to 4 or 5 months, they're obsessed with what we're doing with them. And then when we also do an iterative process, so we don't just hand the dog off. That's another thing. So everything's custom to the person. Everything is individual by client and by disability. But all our clients are part of the process. So they come out for visits, they take to get to know the dog, they take the dogs home for a couple of weeks whenever possible. A lot of our clients are local, where that's possible. With remote clients, we have them come out and stay a little bit and take the dog to a hotel where they can go. So there is the transition of the relationship, the transition of working for them, the transition of moving about with them in public is something that we build into the entire process from start to finish. So by the time the dog transitions into their home, they're very familiar with their dog. The dog knows them well. The dog has alerted for them. The dog has tasked for them. The dog has been out and about with them several weeks, basically, at that stage. So it's not just like, here's your dog, good luck kind of thing. It's a very iterative process. And I think all these components make a huge difference. It's not a template cookie cutter. Let's have a puppy raiser do it and we'll take him and train him and here it is. It's no, this dog is trained for cardiac support. So he will have, this person passes out when they bend over, so he has a pickup task, he alerts to heart rate changes. Maybe he does deep pressure therapy, very common combination. And all these things are introduced at an early age. They're introduced when the dog's 4 or 5 months old as tasks. And then they start practicing these tasks when the dog goes home with them at the 9-month mark. So at the 6-month mark, we send them home to practice public access and public obedience and take them out in public. And they give us feedback, and then we incorporate it in the next round of training. And then the next time the dog goes home 2 or 3 months later, we have improved the areas that there are challenges in with the public access, and they all now have the task foundation down. So they're starting practicing the tasks in private at first, not in public. And then the next time, 2 or 3 months later, dog goes home, we're practicing tasks in public now. So it gets gradually expanded. And I will say that 10 years ago, I couldn't have done this. So, and I only met my girlfriend in 2019, and she's been doing this way longer than me. But the TWC course I took when I graduated there, what I learned from you in this course has made this actually possible for me. Because I could have not done this before this course in this fashion. I wouldn't have been able to transition the relationships the way we are, built this all up the way I am. So this has been, from a training perspective, from a business perspective, and from helping people, has been a huge game changer for me personally, going through the course and applying the concepts. And it just makes a difference on how you go about it. And if you give it just a dog to a puppy raiser, that's probably, then you're ending up with a dog that was raised however he was raised. They did whatever they did. They didn't see what the dog needed. There was no really any training done. And then we're trying to slap the training on top of it. Yeah, it makes sense the dog would have a higher washout rate. We see if the dog washes out, but by the time the dog's a year old, we know if that dog's going to work out or not. We know this actually earlier than that, but we would, so we do something completely nuts. Everybody thinks we're crazy. We have a
I mean, the results are always, you can argue with results. That's the thing. And I think you clearly are doing something that many don't really have a feel. And then maybe it's something that should be, people should get kind of exposed to, people that are in the service industry. Because this is probably really the biggest problem is the dropout rate in every service dog program. Like, I don't want to, and again, it's the bigger kind of organizations I know. So they always have a toss up of, okay, we have the 4-H homes, and it's not every day, it's not even every week, but we have a person that kind of goes around and checks on them, and they come once every 3 weeks, and you give them a little some. So you do have some limited supervision, and you do kind of give them guidance. It's not optimal. Then, without pointing out to certain schools, but there is places where they do what you do. They get puppies and they start right away. And in theory, it's super cool. But from the short time and observations that I have, no matter how often they will bring that little puppy out to work, I feel that they end up spending way too much time being crated, which also is leads to some kind of problems on different spectrums. So yeah, I think smaller is like dividing even the bigger organizations. If I had this power to decide how it should be done, I would divide them in way smaller compartments to where they have this opportunity to really, it's like, okay, you have this number of dogs, and you have the freedom, because you have proven that you have the knowledge to actually play with what the dogs need within some acceptable norms still, but have the green light to be creative, and because dog training, it's bottom line, if the moment you start interact with them as they're a machine, which is very easy to do because you're doing the next dog, the next dog, the next dog, and in a big organization, it literally is step-by-step things. So you can say as much as you want to that you're not looking at them as machines, but the interactions are not the same. How do you do with the dogs, as far as do you wait to have somebody in need, or are you preparing a dog ahead of time, or combine, like how you structure that side of the business?
So it's always when somebody contacts us and they advance and they sign up. So we don't buy dogs ahead of time. We don't pre-train dogs for anything. Everything is just in time, I guess, as needed. So if somebody buys a service dog from us, the first step is we find the dog. So it usually takes us anywhere from 2 weeks to 3 months or so. We go all over the country. We have flight nannies fly the dogs to us. So they're basically hand delivered in the cabin. They don't go in cargo anywhere. They're carried in a carrier on a seat. And we get the dogs from breeders we know and trust and have a good track record, or we give a new one a chance every once in a while. We say this, we have seen dogs from them and we got some good feedback, or somebody recommended them and we looked at them and like them, and we'll try that out. But then they come in, and then the next phase of the training starts. So then it's usually paid by training phases is a very common approach. But we offer different types of financing solutions. So people can pay by phase, they can pay the whole thing at once, they can pay monthly and have a down payment initially. So we offer all kinds of things to make it more attainable, because it is expensive and it takes a long time. This is not cheap, obviously. This just takes money and takes time. And a lot of people contact us who cannot afford it, even with fundraising.
And speaking of which, are you non-profit, or how do you structure the company?
So we actually have both. We started a nonprofit to help people with fundraising, but it has no money. So at this point, it's not a nonprofit that's active. The rest is a for-profit business. So everybody who signs up has to pay themselves. And
which in a way I really like, because no matter what you get when it's free, it gets kind of underscored, underappreciated. Like that's what, like when even if it's a friend and I can just give him a puppy, I don't like to give a puppy. There is that thing about it puts some pressure, if you want to say, of you're investing and you're in a way responsible, and you have to think it through and make that step and make that decision, and you're obligated. It's not I got a free watch. Well, do you want my watch? It's like, no, you wouldn't do that, would you?
yeah, it's a big investment. So it definitely, people also mention that we don't want to ruin our investment. We don't want to make mistakes when the dogs go home. So they don't want to have wasted their money. So they're concerned about making mistakes with the puppies. And we coach them and guide them. So we help people. It's basically hand-holding, which is fine. This is great. We want the dog to succeed and we want the person to succeed. And then the second step after training the dog, training a dog is just one component of this. The other one, we have to make the dog and the person a team. They have to become a functioning service dog team. The dog needs to understand he's working for you, and you need to be able how to operate your dog and take care of your dog. So they have to become a unit. And that's also a big part of these all these meetings that we do, all the home visits that we do. We have homework for them every time. They get written instructions, they get video demos of what we want them to do. We do check-ins with them during the home visits to make sure it's all working out, and then maybe modify something. So it's very custom by each client, and the dogs all progress kind of in the same way, but all the training's a little different. Every dog has different preferences. Every dog has favorite toys. Every dog has favorite activities.
Yeah.
And
all that improves your success rate. Everything that you're talking about, that's where your success rate keeps going higher and higher, and without a doubt it should. What about follow-ups? What do you do on follow? Do you, or actually before follow-ups, do you, when the dog is ready to go? I'm just so genuinely curious of this. When the dog is ready, does the person come to you? You have like some dormitory, or it's always in-home training? How does that go? That second part.
So when the dog finally goes home, or when there's home visits?
When the dog completes the training, passes your test, you've matched it, you've paired it, and now we need to make them a team. Where do you go at their homes, or do they come to you, or is it a combination? How does that go?
They come to us, but we've started making them a team throughout the process. So it's not something we try to do at the end. We focus on their relationship throughout the entire time. So every time the dog goes home, they play with a dog, and we show them exactly how to play with a dog, and we will modify that game to whatever disability level the person is at. So we have people who cannot move a whole lot. They have to sit in a chair. They're not necessarily in a wheelchair, but they may be in a wheelchair ambulatorily most of the time. And we will teach them how to interact with their dog in a way that, from the dog's perspective, the dog thinks or feels they're playing with that person, while an able-bodied family member will do all the legwork. So we have one particular case I'm thinking of right now. It's a Labrador, super active, and she's not very mobile, so she's sitting. So when she throws the ball or can't throw the ball, her father will throw the ball, but she will give all the commands. The dog has to wait until she says yes. The dog has to wait until she says this or that. So all the words come from her. All the physical stuff comes from a family member. And from the dog's perspective, he always comes to her. He doesn't go to the family members. The dog clearly sees, you're playing with me, you're the one telling me things, you're the one doing it, you're just a leg worker. So we're building this into the entire process from the very first visit. And we're factoring in the disability level, the energy level of the person, what can they do, what will they be able to do, what do they think they will be able to do a year from now. So when we talk to them initially, we also ask them, what is the expected progression of your disability? What is the doctors are telling you? Where do you think this is going? Where do you think you'll be 10 years from now? So we're trying to factor all of this in as we train the dog, and not train a dog that will work for you maybe for a year, and then 2 years from now your disability has gotten to a point where you can't do the things you did a year earlier and it all falls apart. So we're training it. So we have to factor this in down the line as much as we can. We also offer add-on tasking. So if a dog, let's say a disability changes and somebody didn't expect to become wheelchair bound but now is, and now wants some additional tasks, you can send the dog back for a couple of months, and we know the dog, obviously the dog's been trained by us, he has all the foundations. We can add a task on in a 2 to 3 month time frame to a pretty reliable level because the relationship's already in place. He just learns a new skill set to help his person or her person. So it's all like part of the process from start to finish. It's never like, let's add this on at the end. And actually, we also, I do this with pet dogs actually the same way. I have people come out multiple times and start building relationship and transition as we go. And it's been a game changer in success too. So like building this in is not just for service dogs. This is something that makes total sense for pet dogs too. Not on a 2-week program.
I remember when you were sharing your plan when we have the TWC Zoom calls, and yeah.
So I place a lot of emphasis on making the people successful with their dog, let it be a pet or a service dog. Obviously with a service dog, it's way more time, way more everything. But the overall,
I'm assuming it's a ongoing follow-up and support or
oh yeah, it's lifetime support. They can come back anytime for in-person sessions, Zoom meetings, follow-up calls. We check in with them. All the dogs we train is lifetime support. As long as the dog's alive, you call us, anything. So.
That's mind-blowing. That, I mean, I'm 100% sure you're quite busy with making all those ends, everything to work smooth. Like nobody would do that if you don't like doing that. Like if you are doing it for the wrong reasons, there is no way you will be doing that. And not even for half a year. Right.
Be hard to scale. I mean, you could, with the right people, you could. If I hired a bunch of TWC trainers, I probably could. But it'll be hard to scale.
Interesting question, and I know you have questions for me, but again, like it's not that often that I get to talk to somebody more in depth about service dogs, so I do have questions also. Do you guys share any experience? Do you stay in touch with any other organizations anywhere, or everybody keeps their own? Like I will tell you, with the guide dogs, it was very much from, and it still remains the same. It was what we do is what we do, what our training plans are and whatever. Yeah, we have to go to annual guide dog conferences or whatever, but they are more of legislative things, but actual sharing of how we do and how you do, it's non-existent pretty much. So how do you guys?
Yeah, we're not part of any service dog organization or industry group. We're part of the IACP. Well, there's none of that going on there. I mean, there's nothing in that regard. I'm part of TWC, obviously. But yeah, that's about the affiliations that we have. So we would be happy to talk to other trainers, but organizations, they always get bogged down in their processes, and everything becomes formulaic and it has to be this, it has to be that. And it's kind of I think if you scale, there is really no other way than getting to very clear procedures and processes. Otherwise, you can't copy them and train people in it. So the moment you need to count on people's intuitions, on their own moral standards and their own proper behaviors, it doesn't scale well anymore. I think there's a general problem. I've never seen that work with any dog training company. Look at any of the dog training franchises.
Very true.
They don't scale well either. Maybe the first guy was fantastic, phenomenal even, who knows? I don't know. I don't know them, but
Absolutely.
their franchise doesn't scale in not the same quality. The quality, I should say, doesn't scale. Obviously, the organization scales, but the quality doesn't scale. It works for McDonald's because they're supplying everything. You don't need anything to just run a McDonald's franchise. Here's the machine, here's the supplies, we send you everything, you just have to turn it on and flip the burger, that's it.
You actually need to make an effort to fuck up a burger. You know?
Yeah, it's correct. You have to really put an effort in to screw this up. And with any personal service business, let it be dogs, let it be people, the moment you try to templatize it, it's gonna break down at some point, sooner or later. Maybe the first franchise level works out, but the moment those people train other people, it's over. Right? So then things will get lost. And I don't even know if you could do that. If there's even a way of doing it better. I've thought about this a little bit. I don't know that there is. I have my doubts, to be honest. But if we were to find another company, I mean, there's so much business out there. I never really view other dog trainers as competition per se, because there's so much business for all of us. It's not my gain isn't your loss and vice versa. There is enough for everybody to go around. If we had another company that was like us and have like get-togethers and brainstorm, we'd be open to it, absolutely. But there is nobody that we would do this with that we know, that we've met, that we've come across. What we do in the TWC community with these community meetings when we do this kind of stuff is really unique. This doesn't exist outside of that, at least that I've seen. Maybe Michael Ellis does it too. I mean, it's his community, I don't know. I'm not part of that, but I could see him do that. But I could see maybe Bart does it with his groups. But I don't really see it anywhere outside very high-level training systems where there is an interest of the person who started it and runs it. And
yeah,
I mean, I wish you a really, really long life, Ivan, but 50 years after you've passed away, will it sustain in some way? I don't think anybody knows and could tell you. I don't know how you could ensure it. You couldn't be certain, right? You could set it up in all kinds of ways, but you can't guarantee it once you're no longer able to oversee it. It's
always more, and there is always something new, and there is always that evolution, and hopefully, I mean, that was the main reason I decided to make the community to where hopefully people that really start to understand that will continue the movement, and
and that's the best hope there is, and the best chance for it. Then you have people who have the same interest and share the same vision, they may carry on. But that's the best legacy you can create that way. And then hope for the best, because ultimately you can't control it once you're no longer able to control it yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. Man, this is the not sharing knowledge. I will tell you what, like there is, like I know firsthand, like I absolutely, people will be like, you should give the names of those people and organizations, and I cannot do that, because if I do that, then I'm gonna end up having to go back and forth with somebody forever, or let them have their say, and I just don't have the time to do that. But I have to say that just like with every dog training, every area of dog training, in service dogs and that includes all types of service dogs, they're people that have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah.
And it's so easy, like it takes a minute of watching and listening of their thought process and watching what they do to realize that this is a disaster. And somehow, unfortunately, again, just like with every aspect of dog training, they convince people to go through their programs. And here is the old age question: how do we, and should we try to have some regulations? And who is to say that you can and you cannot? And typically, coming from communist country, I like freedom and I like the market to decide. But it sucks, it hurts when you watch how people get baited into something. And it's one thing when you have a dog that just, okay, he's not gonna come back when you call him because they did a very bad training. But when you have a dog that's you're dependent to cross a street and not get run over by a car, this is a different level of responsibility. And I'm sure in your area of expertise, you're seeing this kind of training and this kind of places, being small, being big, but there is certainly, they're out there and they're dangerous. I don't know, like I don't have a solution how to go about it, but I always get very like this uneasy, like, no, that's not a pet dog. Like there is a person that needs that dog to do certain thing. It not that different. I mean, of course, in a different aspect, but the same goes with police dogs, where some expert guru trainer on Instagram goes and teaches and does all this bullshit, and there is that kid with a dog in the canine unit that is relying on that dog right now to do something, and that dog doesn't. Maybe because the dog doesn't have it from inside, maybe because the training was very poor, but right when you need it, that dog will not perform. And the sad part is that that's not that hard to be predicted if you are honest. I don't know. What do you think on this stuff? That always bothers me. I don't know.
Oh, it bothers me too, and I don't have an answer either, honestly. I've thought about this too. What they're doing in Australia seems interesting to me. So they have this, I forgot how it's called. There is some sort of certification that they have, but it's not centered around do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. It's centered around understanding learning science, understanding learning principles, understanding some foundations about animal learning in general, stuff like that. And it's all voluntary, but over the years it became a pseudo standard that everybody expects trainers to have, and if you don't have it, apparently you can barely get hired. So everybody takes these courses and learns about animal behavior and animal learning science to some degree. I don't know how good it is, I don't know what they teach, but that idea that you have to have a base foundation of understanding the actual science, not like the pseudo questionnaire of 200 people you found in your Facebook page, but the experimental science from
the fundamentals.
The fundamentals. You understand those. You test the knowledge of at least getting that. Then what you do with that, I don't know whether we can control that, but having something like that, I could see make a difference. Because it would filter out the ones who really can't, or just getting in for the money, or don't really want to know anything or learn anything. Because there's the money is tempting in dog training, right? There's like you see what a good dog trainer can charge, and you say, hey, I can be a good dog trainer. I'll hang up my shingle. I'll say I'll train thousands of dogs, although I started yesterday, and who knows any different. So I'm going to charge thousands of dollars, and the dog will be a little bit better than he was yesterday, and that's going to be good. I mean, there's people like that out there.
Yeah, for sure.
And
for sure.
we had personally, we had two now straight up service dog frauds that came to us after they've been taken for one was $70,000, the other one was $15,000, and the dog was just not doing anything. So the first one was actually a former client of mine, pet dog client at the time. I was not into service dogs. I told her straight up, I don't know anything about service dogs. But that was, 10 years ago or so. And she got a service dog, in quotes, from, I will not name the company. But the dog freaked out during a firework on 4th of July, jumped over the fence, ran away. Came back 3 days later. And she like, my dog's afraid of fireworks. I need help. So I came there to help her with the dog's anxiety. It was a lab, and she even hired an attorney. Went after them. Their answer was, "Oh, we took him to Vegas. He was fine." Like they took him to Vegas once to watch fireworks and thought, "Oh, he's fine." I mean, that's not how you do this, right? And she ended up suing them. I wrote an opinion on the dog. He was a wonderful pet, and I describe him as an awesome pet with an additional skill set that he sometimes chooses to do or not, because that's what it really was. It was not a trained service dog by any stretch of the imagination. And I mean, it was a horrible situation, and we actually, that dog came here to fix the task, the alert for her seizures, which was a response of pressing a dog phone button and dial 911. And she had a very clear seizure symptom that she would, on a grand mal seizure, was actually a very physical, obvious symptom. So it was fairly straightforward to train. It was not, the dog was not the right dog for it. I mean, that was the biggest challenge. But the task itself was simple. She had like this very clear body movement that she would get into when she seizured up on a grand mal seizure. And so we did that, and then she ended up getting surgery or a new medication that stopped all grand mal seizures. So at the time it was done, she no longer had the problem, was medication controlled. But so that was the first one. The second one is coming later this year. We actually had them recently here for an evaluation, and they were taken for $15,000. That dog is absolutely not trained. Has a lot of behavioral, not behavioral problems, but a lot of pet misbehaviors, like stealing stuff off the counter, just not listening, like untrained basically. 2 years old, very sweet animal, highly intelligent, smart. So this is not a dog problem. The dog has a great recovery rate, sound. It's not a bad dog at all. This dog is likely very capable of doing all of this with the right training. So we just don't know if we can get him over all these her over all these hurdles. So what we said, we're gonna take him into our pet dog program for 2 months and see if we can fix all these issues that you have from a pet perspective. And then we're gonna reassess if we're gonna tackle the tasks or recommend that we'll start with a new puppy and this just stays your pet. Because that's the fair way to do it for them. It's not anything else would not be fair, because we can't guarantee that that's going to work with a 2-year-old at this point. We see a lot of promising signs. There is a good possibility that it'll work out, but we'll know after we went through obedience training and see how she responded to everything, and then we'll go from there. And they're open to considering getting a puppy afterwards, so they're fully aware of the situation. We had the dog here for a week, and we wrote a report and says, this is our assessment, that's how we see your dog, and this is what we think needs to happen, that's how we propose we go about it. And they said, okay, let's do that, that's reasonable. So, but they were taken advantage of. It's a person with disability, and it's just not okay. It's amoral, it's disgusting, it's just breaks my heart to see that, but this dog in particular,
on all levels is wrong.
It's wrong. It's wrong. You have to, and I think a lot of these people, so what I see with a lot of dog training companies that also do service dog training, they view it as an add-on task. Or we teach the dog a trick of bringing the beer from the fridge. Or we teach him a trick of opening the door.
Right. Right. Hey, service dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for someone who's a quadriplegic, getting the beer from the fridge is a perfectly fine task, right? But they view it just as an add-on task. They don't figure into, is this dog actually paying attention to his owner? Is this actually a suitable animal that can function under distractions in a public environment and pay attention that you're actually having a heart attack right now? So building that connection is not a concern of them. They just, hey, this dog knows how to press this button. The dog knows how to pull this door open. And that's not a service dog. I mean, technically under the law, you could argue maybe it is, but from a value perspective, it's not. So if the dog doesn't pay attention to you, it can't alert on a seizure or a heart rate increase or blood pressure increase or blood sugar increase or cortisol increase or whatever. They need to pay attention to you.
Yeah.
That's where we originally started the conversation, and I was saying that intuitive willingness to please and being keen, not because of training, but naturally, genuinely being keen on, are you okay? Are you happy? How is it? Like I'm paying attention, but it's not because it's trained. That's kind of what you're talking about. Again, it's and like with guide dogs for the blind, you almost can get away with this because it's not as critical. But somebody that's gonna have a seizure or you know, any of those episodes, the dog has to constantly be concerned. It's almost like there is some level of insecurity borderline to where they're like, hey, I'm always paying attention with you. To where guide dogs, they need to get to understand, okay, that's how fast my person can walk. That's how tall my person is, so I know if that branch that's sticking here, we can go under or we should avoid things like that. But they're much more training aspect than your type of work, where that keenness, that paying attention, not because you have to, but because that's who you are. It's so critical there, right?
Yeah, it's a relationship building thing, and some dogs come with it straight out of the box. I would say shepherds, really, they lock into a person and they just pay attention because they're one person dog, really. And other dogs, they can absolutely get there. Not all breeds.
But then, like, I remember when I used to work at guide dogs, I'm sure this is still a thing. We were not allowed to train dogs kind of, dual purpose protection and guide dogs. It just, you don't want to mix that. There is a huge liability factor of that, and you need a very special dog and very capable person. Can it be done? I know I can do it. I know I can do it, and I know I can do it for the right person in the right environment. But that's not everybody. But I know, like I will tell you that when we started to go, and after, again, you train the dogs, you train the student, then they go home, and next thing you do is go all over the country for follow-ups and see what's up. And some of the people lived in a very, very dangerous places. I mean, I remember me going in Baltimore, and just really nice woman. Like, she's like talking about being raped, like it's like, yeah, I had breakfast croissant this morning. It's, I mean, a different level of situation she's in. And she's like, you have to call me and I will meet you on that block. You're not driving to my house because you don't want to drive into my house. So I'm saying there is, like, I know that some people will definitely benefit to have a little bit of a security, but it's so complicated. Have you had anything like this to where somebody is asking, can we also have some protection aspect of training, or you've never had those?
We never had anybody ask straight up for a protection task. We have someone who looks for protection from their dog, but not as a trained task. So they are looking for the intimidation factor, and they got a shepherd. Actually,
Deterrent, yeah.
Is it a deterrent? The puppy actually that just came in is a black shepherd. He's going to be a big boy, so he will be a big deterrent. That poor man was attacked. He was on a business trip and he was attacked in a parking lot, I think. Got a mugging, stole his wallet. But yeah, and his PTSD. So that's what the dog's for. And he will give him peace and comfort. Once this guy is grown up, nobody's going to mess with him. That's not a dog. So my girlfriend, Sarah, her service dog is Storm. He's a black German Shepherd. She loves black dogs. All her dogs are black. And when we go out, like one time we went to Target, and he's a nice dog. He's a friendly dog. He's a good-looking dog too, but he's a black shepherd, right? So we go to Target, and he's next to us, he's sitting there. And there was a teenager who literally jumped in the shopping cart of his mom, terrified of this animal. They opened up a checkout line to get us out of there. They were very nice about it. Oh, we opened up a line. Why don't you come over here? So great, beautiful, gets us out faster. But it was very obvious that like this is causing a disturbance in the store, and he's just sitting there. He's sitting next to her in line for the checkout, and he's doing anything. He's not growling, he's not barking, but it has an effect. Like any black dog really has an effect, but a shepherd.
100%.
But a shepherd especially.
Especially a black dog with a little bit lighter eyes, this gets trippy.
Yeah.
Because for some reason, the light eyes also bring something. Oh.
Do you remember that we had this conversation? I think we had it in writing in the group. In the TWC group about can a service dog be a protection dog legally, just from a law perspective. And we have one of our TWC trainers is an attorney, and she and I had a wonderful conversation about this in there. And because I was under the impression from reading the law first that you're actually legally not really allowed to do it, but that's not true. You can absolutely do that. What you can't do is you can't make a protection task a service task. So you can't have the dog growl as a task or aggress as a task. But you can definitely have a dog that does both if he understands the clear difference between both of these. So legally you're absolutely allowed to do it. But I would probably deter most people from it because there are very few people who can train this. I know, I'm sure you can.
Very, very few people.
I probably couldn't, so I wouldn't try. I wouldn't tackle something like this. But yeah, legally you're allowed to if you can. The law does not prohibit that. Although in the service dog industry, the common thinking is you're not allowed to. So I've heard from many service dog trainers, you can't do that. The law says so. And I read the law very carefully. It's not that long. It's not that complicated to understand what's in these words. And it does not say that directly. You could interpret some of those phrases this way, but that's when our trainer friend came in and explained that's not what this legally means. So I understand now. Who's her name? Mary? She was in the earlier groups. It was a long time ago. It was 1920, 2021. She's been a certified trainer for a while. But yeah, it was a great conversation. So I learned a lot from her in this back and forth about. That was very educational.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I don't even know why I brought this into the conversation, but it's a very interesting one. There is a need, but at the same time, there is it can go wrong.
But
yeah, so we never had people in bad parts of town because it's private training. They have to pay for it, and that kind of eliminates certain income levels and certain demographics and certain living areas. So they're fair or not, it's just life. So our clientele is mostly, I would say, upper middle class. So, and they tend to not live in these areas where you really need to worry about that.
What are your favorite breeds? Like if you
German Shepherd, German Shepherd, German Shepherd. That's my favorite breed. So I love German Shepherds. This is my. Do you mean for service dog work, or you mean in general?
Service dog work.
Okay. German Shepherd.
Sometimes the grooming of a German Shepherd also becomes difficult for, depending what your disabilities are, and of course you can take it to grooming and all that, but there is the double code that it's also you know, and then you have people with the allergy that also need to have a dog. That's kind of the doodle thing started to come in place. Do you ever try any of them?
We don't do doodles, we don't do mixes. So we want purebreds so we can get a better insight into genetics and have the higher drive that gives us a lower washout rate. So we can't guarantee that with a Labradoodle. I've met amazing.
So would you do a poodle straight like purebred poodle? Yeah.
We have
but sometimes people are very, I mean, they when you're allergic to dogs, but you want to, you can take shots and you can whatever, but still like the type of coat can definitely, help or not help having a dog.
No, poodles would be the standard for the people who have allergies and have need the hypoallergenic dog. The poodle is always the go-to.
I love poodles. I think they're super smart. People always think of me as the Malinois person, and I am so interested in all kinds of dogs, and every time during the, with the pet business that we have, a poodle would come. It's always been a very cool experience, even if they had problems. I don't know, like I think they're intelligent dogs, in my opinion.
They are, well, they say they can be. I've met some dumb ones.
Right.
So my favorite breeds with German Shepherd is my personal favorite, number one, but Golden Retrievers, Labradors, their coat's fairly easy to maintain.
Male and female?
Yeah. I've never really seen a difference in like usefulness or trainability or reliability, male or female. I don't know that there's any. Some people seem to think, but I don't see that. So,
do you guys spay and neuter, or what do you do?
Yeah, so that depends. So
okay,
with some,
I already like the answer.
So I personally am not a big fan of spaying and neutering. I don't think it's good for health. Leave the endocrine system alone. It's there for a reason. We can do vasectomies and we can do ovarian sparring space with leave these intact. These are our general recommendations to people. There are other considerations, however. So with a female, the heat cycles can be a problem for a disabled person, can also be a problem out in public. So that may have to happen just from that perspective, because it is a working dog. It's not the greatest for the dog per se, but depends on the circumstances, depends on the tasking, depends on what the person does with the dogs, where they go, where they live, what the environment is like. We would prefer them to just get sterility through a vasectomy and ovarian sparring spay, but sometimes you have to do the other thing. If we have to do the other thing, not until the dog's 2 years old. So we want them to fully develop and grow and avoid the risk as much as possible, but it's not our preference.
Yeah, to where all big organizations, it's a standard procedure. There is no going around it, as far as I know.
Yeah.
So we have two rescue dogs. Well, one is actually, they're rescues to us, let's put it that way. One is from a shelter, and he's a purebred. That's actually Storm. So he ended up being a phenomenal animal. We didn't know that when we got him. We took him, maybe it's a big pet, he's a cool dog. But he just turned out to be so great that he ended up becoming Sarah's service dog. We trained him, and he's a fantastic worker. He's a great dog. He's a really great dog. But he came from the shelter neutered. The other one we got was from a breeder, but the person who bought the dog couldn't keep the dog. And she just realized this is the wrong dog for me. I can't give the right environment. So she was looking for a good solution. And I have a German Shepherd rescue, which is no longer active at this point. But she found me at the time and contacted me. And it was also a Black Shepherd, a female. But she was already spayed when she came to us. But those two dogs, if they were not fixed, they would make the greatest puppies. I mean, these are rock solid animals. If these two could have puppies, that would be a phenomenal litter of service dogs. But they can't. But yeah,
I know what you mean. Do you ever think of making your own breeding program, or that's just too complicated?
We've thought of it. At this point, it's not feasible with our setup and living operations, but we're planning on buying and building something in a couple of years. And we definitely thought about it. It's something we're interested in pursuing.
I think in a lot of ways, it's easier to kind of search and find promising puppies than going through your own breeding program, because breeding, I tell you, like being paranoid about any kind of parvo, coccidia, whatever, like just endless things that can happen, and your vet bills and like it's just breeding becomes like you just add to everything that you do a whole more hours of work.
Yeah.
There is the good side of it, but man, I don't know.
Yeah, when we get the puppies here that we have to raise and they're just 8 weeks old, I mean, they're a handful and they're a lot of work. Now, thinking about what it would be like if we had a pregnant mom and then the birth and then everything after. And it's the workload is not something I would look forward to. Maybe we would need a lot of help to do it, to oversee it, obviously. But a lot of the physical labor, I would want to train people to. I think I would want to get my own tailor for that. I think tailors in your
Yes, yeah. That's the again, I think the best thing is everybody has to find what they love doing, and like a lot of times, like I will tell you, I just had a month ago wanted to hire somebody for kennel help, and of course there is everybody, a lot of people want to come to do. When we advertise, I don't put my name. They cannot, I don't want somebody to say, oh, I'm working for Ivan for a month, and so they can just have something on their resume. That's not the point. So they come as they're coming to any training facility. But over the years, I learned to be kind of pretty quick to get a feel of, you're here because you need money, and that's not what you like to do. And it aren't within 3 days of work, because it's no, you're staying on your phone and there is a dog there and you don't even want to touch it. It's 5 o'clock, you're walking by empty water dish and you're not going to stop to put water. So finding the right person, it's not even about how many years it's been but do you love what you do? Or is that something that it's your stepping stone or security for the moment that you just need to do something, because that's not dogs.
There's too much that can go wrong when you are around dogs and you don't pay attention and you don't take care and you don't really think it through. So it's hard to find good people. I mean, it's difficult. It's
How
not
do
easy.
you guys, what do you do when you have to, I mean, I'm even afraid to say the word vacations. Is there such a thing for you?
That word, vacation.
Because we all need vacation at
What
some
is
point.
that again? I forgot what that is. So it's very difficult. The reason I have not been to a TWC trainer summit is it is extremely difficult for me to get away. I'm trying this year. I'm trying really hard to set everything up in a way that I can. We shall see if it happens. But it's difficult. I mean, it's difficult to get out. We have good people that can take care of the dogs for a few days if we have to get somewhere that we can trust and feel good about. So it's not that we're completely unable to go anywhere, but anything beyond a day or two is going to be challenging. Because they're all at different stages of training. There's things happen sometimes. Puppy starts having diarrhea, or so we switch the food up. The new guy just got here and got this new food, and it's not, the stomach is complaining. So there's always something. It's never just uneventful, even on the weekends. It's dog trainer life, you know. It's
Tell me about it.
yeah. But I probably work way more hours now than in my previous corporate job, but it doesn't feel the same because it's structured differently. I have obviously control over when I work. I can do it at night when it's not hot outside. I can do it early in the morning. I can do it inside or outside. And I can do things in between. I need a little break, do some office stuff and go back to the next dog. So it's a completely different way of working and living than having a 9 to 5 where you just clock in and out and something you don't really care about. So it doesn't feel like as stressful as it should feel if it was something I didn't enjoy. But I think that's the same for every business owner who likes what they do. So I thought not that's unique.
Yeah, very true.
I don't think I'll ever retire in the classical sense either because I love what I do. I scale back. I don't want to do as many dogs as we're doing now. That's crazy. That's not something I want to do 10 years from now. But there's always going to be one dog here in training for something. I don't think I'll ever stop doing that completely. I just like it too much. So I'm assuming it's the same for you.
Yeah. I mean, even though there is always that uneasy feeling when you're gone, and for whatever reason, a lot of times the bad things happen when you're gone, not when you're here, or at least it feels that way, you know. And then here I am, who knows in what country, and now I have to talk to some veterinarian about a situation that I'm not even present making decision. It's not an easy feeling. It's just a part of what we do, I guess, and we all been through those. But having breaks are so important because I feel like every time that or almost every good idea, like when I have a light bulb coming on, it's always been during times where I'm not doing anything, when I'm kind of on a break, on a pause, and it's not like I'm purposefully trying to think of something, but it's like, oh, and then I write it down, and then I come back and I try to see if that makes sense or no. So I appreciate time off because a lot more because of these moments where like I feel like my brain has opportunity now to actually get more creative instead of keep chasing what every day is required to chase, right?
Yeah. So I mean, I had a corporate career before I was a dog trainer, as you know. And I think I've redefined for myself what vacation is, what breaks are. When you have a job where you just don't, you work for someone else and it's not really your passion, it's just like makes money, maybe it's good money, but it's not the same thing as being self-employed and doing what you like. Yeah, getting away for a week, getting away for 2 weeks is really something that you need, otherwise you just go crazy. But if I can take an afternoon off, or I'll take a day off, or on a weekday, I don't want to do it today. I'll take a break. And I can do that. And these are little breaks and they're short breaks and they're not like I'm boarding a plane, I'm flying somewhere. But they make a big difference and they keep me going and sane. That's really what it's changed to for me. And that works for me. It may not work for other people, but it definitely works for me to do it that way. But you don't go far, that's the other thing. I mean, you stay around. It's not that I'm completely gone.
Yes.
But I'm just basically checking out, okay, I'm not responsible for this right now. Somebody else is. Good. I can take a few hours here and there. I can take a day. That does make enough difference for me to stay motivated and stay engaged and keep going. Well, when I had my corporate job, that was not the case. That would not have cut it. I definitely needed to just not be there.
Did you, how much of a risk you felt you were taking to make that? I mean, it's a drastic switch of how was that for you?
It was a big risk. I mean, I had at the time, I had 2 online businesses I had started and they were doing quite well. So it's not that I was without any income at that time, but it was not really enough to sustain for a long while. So I burned through my 401k starting my dog training business over several years to go full-time into it. And I have 0 regrets about doing that. I took a big risk, but it turned out quite well. I started getting full-time into this in 2008-9, and that was in the middle of a recession. Housing market crashed, and it was, and that's when I basically started. And it started growing and growing and growing from there. So it was, and there's been a couple of recessions since then, but it's never been really a problem for me. So it's, yeah, it was a risk and it worked out. High risk, high reward. So.
Right. No. Yeah, I'm all about that as well. But I always ask, especially like people from Europe, we kind of tend to be like, oh, I'm working for this company. I actually just had a few days ago conversation with my daughter. She's visiting from Germany right now. About this thing of, you somehow the whole model makes you like, if you're working for, she's from Stuttgart, so you have Porsche and Bosch and, you have the few big, so if you're in there, you've made it. Like everybody thinks you're it. And regardless of what position, you can be anything, but it's that security thing. And typically, I think it's changing more and more, but people in Europe taking that risk of starting, being an entrepreneur and starting your own thing, it's almost hard for them to the point to where it's like, well, what would I do? Like being lost in not even coming up with an idea of what you possibly can do. And taking the risk, I think it's always interesting. And with dog training, you find out very quickly if it's for you or not, because there is no like within a couple of months you're either exhausted and you still, for whatever reason, you're like, I like it, or you're like, I can't do that, and it's a done deal.
No, I mean, you mentioned this, I think this was before we started actually recording, but I agree with you 100% about the benefits of America. So there's no country where it's as easy to start a business as here. And even if you end up failing in something, you can start another one, you have another chance. You don't have that in Europe. you're one and done. And I'm from Germany. You fail at a business, you suck. Like it's over.
Yes,
Go back to
yes,
employment.
yes.
Here is like that's very different here. I love living in California too, just like you love living in Florida. I love being here. I think this is a great place to be. Every country has its problems. Nobody's perfect. But overall, I don't see myself going anywhere else. I love where I am. I love what we do. So it's, what I do here, I couldn't do where I'm from. Like in Germany, I couldn't have this business that I built here. That would not be possible in this fashion. Regulation alone would have killed.
Just regulations, exactly. You know?
There was always, when I was in college, there was always this joke, Microsoft would have never happened in Germany because we got regulations about starting a business in your garage. So there's that. But yeah, this is an entrepreneurial country, and this is opportunities.
Yes.
And if you want to become a dog trainer, this is one of the last 3 bastions where you can actually really learn everything you want to learn and try and experiment with every tool and every methodology and do what ultimately ends up being best for the dog without being hampered down by well-meaning but very ignorant limitations, which you have in Europe a lot of at this point. So it's yeah, I'm happy here. So
Cool.
So let me look at my list here. I think we touched on a lot of things I had actually on my list of things I wanted to ask you about. Oh, it's service dog breeding programs, washout rate. Oh yeah. So the service dog industry, from your perspective today, where do you see that 10, 15, 20 years from now? Where do you think this is going? Is this gonna get better? Is it gonna get worse? Are the dogs still gonna be able to do work? Will we still have service dogs? What do you think is gonna happen?
With the whole AI situation I think everything is in a big question. I don't think nobody really has a good, I think it's all big speculation. Now, on top of that, with dogs and animals, we have all the other fronts that we have to fight, and that's like your animal rights and the different camps of training and who says it's what and who says what science says. That's like the little wars that we have within. And I cannot say they're not important because they definitely can shift everything one way or another. United States is literally the last standing fort of defending how we train and understanding everything. If that changes, we can face that situation where the force-free ideology kind of takes over and everything will change. It is crazy how you have in Germany, they, what was it, a year and a half ago when they finally was like, okay, the electric collar is done. But then they understand that there is a need, like what do you do with the police dogs? What do you do with the military? And then they're like, well, you can use it in deployment, but you cannot use it in training. And how weird that is. Like, who needs it in deployment? I need it to train it, so I don't need to use it. But then in England, as they were trying, which is now on hold because probably they have all these other problems they need to face. But the way they wrote the ban, it was, well, positive reinforcement is the way to go. We banned this, but military can do what they want. So it's like, it's not that they are so oblivious and they don't know. And they understand that in some areas of dog training, it's so important. And it is the only option to do it the right way. And they cannot ignore that. So they find these little small prints and give them some options. And so if this happens, I think within some years, people will not know how to. Yeah, I don't know. And what I was gonna say is I wouldn't think people will kind of just lose the art of how to train dogs, and even the whole type of dogs that we're breeding and selecting will also shift into some dogs kind of lifeless. If that's even possible, I don't know. But at the same time, I think it's so deeply baked into our DNA. I mean, it's just such a fundamental law to approach something good and avoid something bad that you can't go around it. Hard to know. Like it could become one of the very cool things that people want to do, because as much as you do games and as much as time you spend in metaverses and all this stuff, doing something live, like actually live with an animal, I think it can become a luxury in some ways. Who knows? You know, like this is gonna be, but there are a lot of questions, and that's kind of where I was talking in the beginning. Like most people, for whatever reason, because they hear me talking and defending electric collars and aversive training so much, that they think that this is just what I do. But I feel like we have to. It's important to defend. I don't know. What do you think gonna happen? Because I'm lost at that one.
I honestly, I don't know either. I cannot see in the United States as a whole all the tools being banned. I think this is probably not the way America is set up. I don't see that. I could see a city do it. I could see a state do something. I could see my state do something like this.
Right.
But as a country as a whole, I don't think that's going to happen.
I know
That's
that
kind of
was
how Australia is. Australia has, I don't know, what's it, Victoria? Like there is a couple of states that it's all banned, and there is others that I would think the moment that, if that happens, I shouldn't even talk about it. But if let's say how they try to do the shop free San Francisco, right? I think if that was to happen, then probably New York would have been next. And from there on, everybody will think, oh, this is the right thing to do. And the pressure gonna kind of roll into everywhere else. And then, of course, you know, there is politicians and they will do whatever it takes to get attention and be likable. And it's gonna get scary. So I'm a firm believer to fight even a legislation like this in a city like Plant City, where it's like 50,000 people. I think we still have to make sure that we don't allow it, because if we do, the door is cracked open, and who
No, I agree.
knows?
I agree. It's definitely important to to fight. So here's an example of actually something where the IACP, I have to say, actually did something really good. Was the legislative committee. I was surprised what they have accomplished, but it was actually a good thing it was in it was in California. We had something here called a law called the Dog Trainer Sufficiency Act, AB 1901 or something like that, passed a couple of years ago. But I saw the first draft as proposed. It was about boarding dogs. You had to, oh God, the stuff you had to do, the paperwork you had to fill out. It was actually nonsense. It wouldn't have improved the life of a single dog. It was all feel-good measures that don't accomplish anything for the welfare and well-being of dogs. If they did, that's one thing, right? But you could just see like that's not gonna. The people who care are just gonna fill out this paperwork, and the people who are the problem will not bother, and it's not gonna change a thing. And then the ICP's legislative committee got involved in this. They were actually able to get this law changed. And it was still passed, but it was passed in a way that you self-certify that there are no convictions against you against animal cruelty, that there are no convictions against you for civil penalties for animal mistreatment of animals of any kind. For you, everybody in your facility, everybody who works for you. And everybody that signs up for a board and train, basically, you have to give them that document. You sign it, they countersign it, that they have a copy. And if you lie, and they find out later, they can come for you, big time. I'm not sure if it's a felony or something, and they can punish you. But they basically have established now a record of, I'm certifying that I'm not a criminal with regards to animals. And if I lied about that, they can finish me off. But if I didn't lie about that, that's all I have to do. And that's a fair compromise on doing something like that if you want to. I don't have a problem with it. I'll put it in my contract. All my contracts are electronic, so I'll put a page in there to meet the requirement. And okay, that was a big change from the original proposal. So they did a really good job there on this particular thing. I don't follow obviously everything they do because it doesn't affect me in other states. But this one was a very positive change, I have to say, that I appreciated being in California. And I have no idea how
There
many.
was something like this.
Say again?
We did something like this in Florida, because in Florida there was a push to ban maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I can't remember. And of course the whole dog training community is like, well, what are you doing? Well, show us why would you, like, you cannot just say, oh, it might. No, like where are the dogs and where is all this care situations? So they decided to have all the contracts, training contracts. They also sent to the animal care, like they still have this board of directors of ethical and whatever, treatment to animals. And if you're gonna use aversive, then the person signs it. If you're gonna change, they just have to be updated. And we did that for like 2 years. And for 2 years, there was nothing happening. So it just kind of naturally became unnecessary. Like every trainer had to write these things. They had to be submitted. Somebody had to file them. It was just an extra work for not even one case of abuse and cruelty. And this reminds me that I'm going to bring this up in the next debate or conversation I have with force-free advocates. Because there is always that, scare tactics of all the big fallouts and whatever. And it's like, where are they? Like literally, where are they? How many of how many?
Mhm.
So, yeah. But it's a fight that we have to, the force-free just doesn't, like, they don't want to, I try to work with them and it's not about convincing them. They cannot be convinced. This is almost as bad as like Republicans and Democrats, and just watching them, like I cannot take a side because it's like that there is no, it cannot work. I don't think how, and I think we are not that different with the force free and the other type of trainers. But my concern is that I am allowing you to do whatever you think you should be doing, and if something you do wrong, I count on the local government that's going to take care if somebody makes it, reports it, and you know, and I expect that you will do the same. Allow me to do my job. Don't tell me how I do my job. You don't even have the knowledge to, on a mediocre level. You're only objecting because yeah, I will abandon this because that will be another hour of something that we're not gonna get anywhere with. But the bottom line of this, the frustrating part of this is that their organization, there is already laws in place.
Yeah.
Absolutely have proven that take care of any animal cruelty when somebody reports it and it's evident. So banning something is not, by far not the solution. Anything that is banned is not the best way. And the fact that somebody insists on their way on a different group of people, it's very inappropriate. And it's not ever me telling a force-free trainer what they should and shouldn't do. It's always one-way street. And this is my big issue with anybody saying, what do you think about regulating the industry? And my absolute immediate answer is no. And my next question that follows up is, who is regulating it?
Yeah.
The force-free, then we know the outcome. Well, we make some collective regulation. Well, we need to first agree what is okay then. Like we're nowhere near to even discuss regulating the industry. But if you, as a force-free advocates, believe that you are the chosen, that you're the modern, that you're, and we're the Neanderthals, and you will put regulation on us, that's not happening, not in the States.
Yeah.
I get hot on this.
No, but you're a good advocate for what the actual science and facts are, and you stand up for it, and that's a good thing. So we need that. That's important.
You're helping me a lot with that, by the way. I have to admit, like, it's very, very cool. Like every time somebody's like, well, where did you pull that study? Where did you, whatever? It's like, go to Ralph's website.
Yeah.
You'll find everything I'm saying. You'll find it, and you'll find it very easy there. So it's I'm super grateful because I don't know how you find time. I mean, I know this stuff is interesting to both of us, but somehow I have everything. I know how to find it in my computers very quickly, but to actually sort it out and make it nice, presentable the way you did, hats off. I mean, it's very much needed,
Well, so this has probably something to do with me and my partner merging our businesses. We have two businesses. We have Happy Dog Training, which is here on this is our pet dog business, And we have Total Canine Focus, which is our service dog business. And they have both their individual websites, and they're focused solely.
The sweatshirt is the Happy Dog, right?
Yeah, that's Happy Dog Training. That's actually my late dog, Sylvester. That was, I had him for 17 years. It's awesome. But Total Canine Focus is our service dog business, and the website is dedicated to service dogs only. There's nothing pet dog related on it. And all the articles and everything. So when Sarah moved out here, she had a website before, obviously for the area she lived in, and I said, I'm going to rebuild this, and I started with hers. And we built up the service dog website because I wanted to help the service dog business transition here. And I rebuilt the whole thing from the ground up. So that's where my previous knowledge from my previous careers comes in very handy. I'm a tech guy.
I was going to say.
So I was able to do that. If I had to pay somebody to do what I did, that would have been a very, very expensive endeavor. I don't think it would have happened in that case. But so I was able to do this, and I built a website where people can find us easily. So it's really, Google loves our websites. That's really the secret of it. And I knew how to do that. So it was very time consuming, but it took me a year from start to finish while we were training dogs. Every night I was sitting there and do this for service dog training. And after I was done with, and there are not really any studies on that website, but after I was done with that, it 9 months, took me 9 months to do it for that one. After I was done with that website was so much better than my pet dog training website. I said, okay, time to revamp that. So I went through all of that, revamped that, and that was also, I had just taken the course like a year or so before, and I had all these studies, and I said, well, I've written a couple of articles since then for my webpage. Okay, we're rebuilding everything anyway, so let's just put that in there. And it takes me a month or two longer to do at that point. But it was a complete rebuild. It wasn't just something I had to add on. And then with that, everything just came together that way. And that took me a year, and because there was so much more content on mine. There was so many more. It's like 60 articles or so. They're all long form. They're not like these little short things. Like if you print them out, they're like 10, 15 pages each. And that took a long time to get that all over. And that's how I also started my podcast, because I had a podcast years and years ago. I did 8 episodes, stopped, and that was it. And it was okay, but I never did anything with it. But when I got to the podcast section on the website, I said, do I kill it? Do I do something with it? What's with this content? Some content was completely outdated because it was about things I no longer do. And it's like, okay, kill that. But there was some things on there, so they'd be nice to keep, but where do I put them? And then I thought, well, it would actually be good to have an audio version for all my articles for search. And then I started recording videos and audio for all my articles. That's how this started, and that became the podcast. And then I did interviews. Your interview number 4, by the way. So I've done very few interviews. I did one interview with a cannabis veterinarian, did an interview with a rattlesnake avoidance trainer, and an interview with a nutritionist. So this is the 4th interview.
I will have to go back, check him out.
Yeah, but they're super interesting to listen to.
I mean, the topics you mentioned definitely will be something to listen to.
The cannabis vet is actually, I ended up taking her course and became a veterinary cannabis guide, and I learned a lot about cannabis. There was so much more that I did not know. I mean, it was super valuable, and I've had one client so far that I actually helped with. I got into it because my dogs needed help, and I hired them. Well, I met them at a convention, and they put me in touch with one of their vets, and they helped me with my dogs. They helped me with Sylvester and with Max when they were older. And they probably had 2 more years of life without any pain because of the cannabis regimen that I
mostly like inflammation or mental inflammation stuff, right?
Combination of THC and CBD, but finding the right ones that will actually help. And it made such a difference for my dog. So this always impressed me. And then when I talked to her, it was years later.
It helped my shoulder. I guarantee you.
Yeah. I just I have to take this course. I have to make the time somehow. It was difficult for me to find the time. It's hard, but I got through the course, and it was super interesting, super valuable, and I'm grateful I did that.
I will check it out for sure. That's, as you know, that always is of interest of mine, and we gotta do another one. Talk about
Happy
what
to.
people like to say alternative treatments.
Yes, I'm
You know,
big into alternative treatments. That was one of my other businesses. I had a natural product store. I was selling natural remedies. And when I say natural, like natural skincare, natural teeth cleaner, natural, like things you could actually buy that are
Right.
healthy without any
Right.
pollutants, any toxins, not like hocus pocus, but like real clean products. That's how I got into this space in my online business days. And it's personally always interested me. I cleaned up my entire life and my entire house of toxins and pollutants. So it's made a big difference.
Well, let's do it again. Let's go there one day. I know I'm
Well,
hard to get, but that would be just as interesting to talk about. You know me.
Yeah, no, I know you do a lot of that too with, the things I had you talk about over the years. I know you always like to explore all options. Definitely, happy to.
cool.
Great. We got through everything
Well-
I wanted to talk to you about, so that's awesome. It was a great conversation.
Because I think I gotta get some dogs out. They've been patient downstairs. They like, sometimes I feel bad. They're so, I wish that sometimes they're like, hey, we gotta get out. But they just kind of wait, you know, they trust me that they will. And so
Yeah, that's a big thing with dogs. As long as they know that you will take them out, or you will feed them, or you
Care.
will play with them, they wait. They're just
Yeah.
patient. They know you're not neglecting me. You haven't forgotten about me. I'll just wait. So
that's kind of, again, like I don't want to open a whole new can of worms to talk about, because we can talk forever. But you know, the pros and cons of doing everything by the clock, because dogs as well as humans can adapt very quickly to, okay, it's 6:30 a.m. what's going on? Or they can be, yeah, it's okay. And same is with people, you know, and then there is the good and the bad that comes with it. But I tend to find more benefits of the dog just knowing that things will be taken care of than always be on that expectation mode of, oh, it's about this time now. Then it makes you very, you know, I don't know, just a conversation for another time, I guess.
I could think of a whole range of things to talk about there. But yeah. Maybe when we talk again, we'll include
Yes.
that.
Yes.
That's a great topic. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Thank you, Sam. Thank you very much for the podcast. Appreciate your time. It was super interesting. I think we covered a lot of ground. Service dog industry and everything around service dogs. I think a lot of people will find this very interesting, what we have to talk about, and learn a new side about you that they didn't know. So
Yeah. Thank you.
thank you again.
Good times always, Ralph.
Till next time. Bye.